Starter Pokemon, the cornerstone of every Pokemon trainer's journey. From the moment a player begins their adventure, the choice of a starter Pokemon is more than just a mere selection. It sets the tone for the entire experience. These Pokemon are the first companions in a trainer's journey, forging a deep bond that influences not only the player's strategy, but also their emotional connection to the game. Whether it's the fiery determination of a fire type, the steadfast resiliency of a water type, or the nurturing growth of a grass type. As you grow and catch more Pokemon during your journey, sometimes your starter Pokemon could get lost as you put it in the box to make room for more powerful Pokemon on your team. Today, I'll be changing this narrative, as I'll make them good again. Good within reason, of course. I mean, I'm not going to max out the stats of each of the starter Pokemon. Instead, I'll make a few minor tweaks, like giving them access to new moves, new abilities, and even buff stats. Although, the stats aren't going to be completely busted, because the base stats of all the starter Pokemon will be at 540. I'm doing this all in attempts to give starters a new light. So with that intro out of the way, let's get started. Kicking it off with Venusaur, let's give him a buff of 10 points to his speed, as well as a nice 5 points in his special defense. This would make him a little faster and a little more bulky, as he usually runs as a more tanky Giga Drain user, to pair up with other great healing moves like Symphysis and Leech Seed. Next off, we've got Charizard, and right off the bat, let's take off that flying typing. He doesn't really need it, as the only good flying move that Charizard learns is Hurricane, which is 70% accurate and will only get to 100% if it starts raining. But obviously, that's bad for him because he's a fire type. Instead of that, I propose we give Charizard the dragon typing as he so rightfully deserves. In addition to that, let's give Charizard a much needed boost of 6 points in his special attack to allow him to utilize his new move, which is Draco Meteor, which is a nice upgrade over Dragon Pulse. And finally, to round off the starters, let's give Blastoise the steel typing. This typing just makes sense for Blastoise as he's mainly used for his defenses. Speaking of defenses, we're giving him plus 5 stat points in both defense and special defense. Starting off with the grass type Meganium, this Pokemon needs a lot of work as it doesn't have the best stats and has got a lackluster typing in the form of a mono grass type. So let's change this by giving her the fairy type as well as a triage ability and access to moves like Draining Kiss, Floral Healing, and Dazzling Gleam. The helping of Meganium doesn't stop there, as I will also be giving her 15 points more in her special attack. This would provide battlers with a nice alternative to Comfey, as now Meganium could fill that role. Moving on to the fire type, we have Typhlosion. This Pokemon would massively benefit from a new typing, and that being the ground type, as it would provide him with much more stab moves at his disposal. And while we're at it, let's just give Typhlosion access to Earth Power, as it would fit in with his buff speed stat of plus 16, as you would take 10 out from its attack because he doesn't really need it. In addition to that, the Flash Fire ability is pretty useless on Typhlosion, so let's give him something useful like Flame Body. And finally, to round off the Johto trio, we've got Feraligatr. Feraligatr is another Pokemon that's in desperate need of the dragon typing, as well as a new ability in the form of Tough Claws. These changes, along with a plus 12 in his speed stat and an attack buff of plus 5, provide Feraligatr a lot more power while having a minus 7 to his special attack. Sceptile is yet another Pokemon we are going to slap the dragon typing onto. It provides Sceptile with some amazing coverage, as he already gets access to a lot of dragon type moves. And with the introduction of Draco Meteor, this would allow Sceptile to be really good along with his existing ability of Unburden and holding the white herb. In addition, let's give him a plus 10 in his special attack to really drive home the fact that he's got the speed and the outstanding special attack to boot. This one is very easy to help out, as we are just gonna buff his physical attack by 10 points, as well as give him access to the move Fake Out. This is for a competitive edge, as now he's got another weapon alongside the combination of Protect and Speed Boost. For Swampert, let's start off by taking off his damp ability, as there's really no need for it, and instead let's give him Thick Fat in order to up defense against fire and ice types. Speaking of defenses, let's give Swampert 10 points in his defense, while only taking 5 points off his speed. This will ensure his new moves like Body Press and Iron Defense would be beneficial for him to excel in the current competitive format. Even though Shell Armor is a good ability for Torterra, let's give him an even better one in the form of Solid Rock. This would provide much use to him, as we are also going to give him a 15-point buff to his defense to really make use of his Shell Smash White Herb set that he so commonly runs. Moving on to Infernape. Let's get rid of his Iron Fist ability and give him a more beneficial one in the form of Inner Focus. In addition to protecting him from flinches, would also provide blocking from Intimidate. Let's also go ahead and give Infernape a +6 in his speed stat, while also giving him access to support moves like Mat Block and Quick Guard for double battles. Moving on to Empoleon, he's got a solid typing of Water Steel, so let's just give him a +10 in special attack, while also granting him access to new moves like Scald and Muddy Water. Also, his previous ability of Defiant is pretty much useless on him, so let's go ahead and change that by giving him Competitive, so that he could be somewhat more of a viable option. Superior is the last Pokemon on this list that I would be giving the Dragon type to, as it fits so well with Superior and the combination of his new move in the form of Draco Meteor. He'll be sure to gain a lot out of his ability, as we're keeping it as Contrary. In order to keep gaining more Contrary boost, let's go ahead and give Superior a +12 points into his speed, making it 125 to ensure that Superior outspeeds most Pokemon in order to get off those boosts. For Emboar, let's go ahead and cut his speed stat to 30 and split it between his two defenses. This is in order to make Emboar a speedy Trick Room user, as well as power up some of his moves like Body Press. In addition, let's go ahead and give Emboar a +12 in his attack stat to further increase his damage output with moves like Flare Blitz, which is already powered by Reckless. Believe it or not, I'm actually going to give Samurott the Rock typing, as well as moves such as Rock Slide, Mighty Cleave, and Rock Blast. I'm also going to match his Hisuian counterpart by giving him the ability Sharpness. Because of the added Rock type, let's go ahead and change Samurott from a special attacker to a physical one. So let's take 20 points off of his special attack and add it to his physical attack, as well as adding 12 points to his speed stat in order to put him in the middle of the road as far as speed goes, but put him towards the top when it comes to attack. To improve Chestnut, we don't really have to improve much beside from giving him a new ability in the form of Unburden. As for stats, let's just give him a +10 in defense, allowing him to make use of his new move, which is Body Press. Moving on to Delphox, we are going to have to do a little bit more work. First, let's swap out the Psychic type for Fairy, as I feel like Delphox never really used up the Psychic type to begin with. But now with the introduction of the Fairy type, along with a new ability like Magic Bounce, this makes Delphox a massive threat. In addition to that, let's give him a +6 towards his special attack to round it off at 120. These additions to Delphox would definitely bump up his usage, especially in the competitive scene. For Greninja on the other hand, let's change its Protean ability back to the original way, which allows it to change its type all the time instead of once each battle. As for its stats, let's take 10 points from its attacking stat and put it to its special attack, while also giving him an additional 10 points to his special attack for a grand total of 123. This improvement would change Greninja into more of a fast special attacker. Starting off with Decidueye, let's invest in its speed by taking off 10 points from his special defense as well as his attack and pour it into speed. In addition, let's double down on speed and give him 10 more points to equal to a total of 90 base speed. For Incineroar, we don't really need to do much as he already is really competitively viable, being on most teams since his introduction. But if we had to do something to Incineroar, let's give him a plus 10 on attack to allow him to hit that much harder. Finally, for Primarina, we also don't really have to do much, as we just put 10 points into its special attack to really push that it's a special attacker. I mean, Primarina's already got a solid typing with Water and Fairy, and a great ability in the form of Liquid Voice, so I can't really see anything else that could make her better. Starting off with Rillaboom, he's overall a pretty great starter. I mean, he's got a great typing, great ability, great stats. Overall, just very solid. Both Rillaboom and Incineroar have been staples to almost every single competitive Pokemon team since they were introduced. They're kind of like the 1-2 punch of Pokemon starters. But if we had to buff one of Rillaboom's stats, let's go ahead and give him 10 points in its attack, so he could take full advantage of his signature move and ability combination. Moving on to Cinderace, let's change the Libero like in the way we did with Protean, and have it change type every time he goes for a move instead of just once per battle. In addition, let's give him some new moves in the form of Rock Slide and Wild Charge, as they both would provide Cinderace with good coverage and a great double battle move in the form of Rock Slide. Let's also tack on a plus 10 in his attack to really take full advantage of this. Lastly, we've got Inteleon, which we are just going to take away his ability of Sniper and give him Water Bubble instead, as it should provide a much needed water boost in addition to his plus 10 special attack that we're going to give it. For Hisuian Decidueye, let's cut its speed stat in half and split it among its attack and special attack, making this Mon a great candidate to thrive in a Trick Room team. In addition, let's go ahead and give it a plus 10 in its defense, as it would make him that much bulkier. For Hisuian Typhlosion, let's get rid of the Frisk ability, as it really has no use for it. And instead, let's give him Sheer Force, as it would be very beneficial for him, as he's got a lot of moves that could take advantage of this. Let's also give Hisuian Typhlosion a plus 1 point in special attack, as well as a plus 4 points in his speed to equal 120 and 100 respectively. For Hisuian Samurai, let's take away 20 points from his special attack because he doesn't really need it, and let's give it to its speed. Then let's give an additional 12 points to its attacking stat to make it a nice 120 base attack. Even though Meowscarada's ability is great, I think he would benefit more from having an ability like Technician, as it could take full advantage of its new move, which is Fake Out. And on top of that, let's give Meowscarada a plus 10 points in its attacking stat, as it already is a physical attacker. Skeledirge is a pretty good Pokemon all the way around, but let's make him even better by giving him a plus 10 in his special attack to really drive home a really forgotten strategy with Skeledirge, and that's Torch Song and Throat Spray. Finally, to round off this video, we've got Quaquaval. To start, let's go ahead and swap out its secondary typing from Fighting and change it to Flying, as it would pair up perfectly with moves such as Acrobatics and Brave Bird, which it already has. Finally, for its stats, let's give this Pokemon a plus 10 in its attacking stat, while taking 20 points from his special attack and pouring it into its speed. All of these additions of Quaquaval would pair up well with his already powerful Moxie ability. From simple stat adjustments to type changes and everything in between, this video aims to make these iconic Pokemon not just memorable for nostalgia's sake, but also competitive in today's metagame. Whether you're a veteran trainer or someone just diving into the world of Pokemon, these changes are designed to breathe new life into the very Pokemon that started it all.